Welcome back to NBC4 at 7. And tonight we are joined live in the studio by the outgoing governor of Ohio, John Kasich, who has spent 8 years leading this state. You came in during some tumultuous times, Governor Kasich, and I guess this is a time of reflection for you. You've been in Congress, you've been in the State House, you've been in the governor's office. Tell me your biggest point of pride and your biggest regret in the last 8 years.
Well, my biggest source of pride, and I'm not kind of like reflecting, I'm moving on to, I'm going to finish through the tape here and then move on to a whole nother set of things. But it's that no one I felt got left behind. I mean, you know, we tried to make sure that if you're poor, if you're mentally ill, if you're drug addicted, if you are a member of the minority community, if you're small business trying to scratch it out, we're there for you. You know, I remember when I said to the legislature, look, I will include in one of the health benefit plans, make sure that moms and dads have coverage for autism. And I mean, I gave somebody a Christmas present. I called her up. I said, I'm going to give you a Christmas present. We're going to do this today. And she had fought for it for so long. So, Colleen, we've got a lot of jobs, and I feel like it's been top to bottom. We didn't leave anybody out, and that's what I'm proud of.
What do you regret?
I don't really have any regrets. I mean, I wish I had gotten a few more things done, but you know, the gun thing really bothers me. But I really don't have any regrets when I think about it. I hate to say that. What is it that I'm unhappy with? Really not much. I'm a pretty happy guy. You know,
during the last presidential campaign.
Well, first of all, you remember we went through Senate Bill 5, and I was on the set then, and we didn't do that right, and we lost, but as a good loser, I said, hey, we'll move on. So could have handled that better, but that was all part of a learning process, you know, and maturing process for me. Because, you know, when you become the governor, you got to be, my wife said to me one time, she said, John, you're the father of Ohio. Would you act like it? And so I think that was really good advice, and I think I just got better every year.
You know, this is probably the most divisive time in politics that I've ever seen, and likely the most divisive time that you have ever seen. During the last presidential election, the Republican campaign was here. You very famously did not make an appearance at the Cleveland convention when Donald Trump became the nominee for your party. Do you think that was a wise decision? And looking back now, people are saying, Donald, you know, John Kasich might have been the smartest person in the room. Well, although others are saying he divided the party.
You know, Colleen, some people thought the reason I didn't go to the convention is because I was bitter that I hadn't won, or, you know, that had nothing to do with it. I don't believe in negative messages, in negative populism. The reason why you lost is somebody else took your stuff. And I felt that's what Trump's message was and remains this day. And I don't support that. Yes, people have problems. I understand they have problems. You and I come from communities where we saw it when we were children. We know that people struggle. But the message is, okay, we're going to fix it, and we're going to fix it together. And that's what I didn't like about that message of negativity, because presidents can set a mood, and when the mood is negative, it can have bad repercussions. So that was my whole deal, and I didn't want to go to a party where I really wasn't going to be welcomed, or where I wasn't going to be supporting the host. So I decided not to go, and I feel great about the decisions that I've made. And you got to make them out of conscience, and you know, I never look back on that.
You worked pretty famously with Bill Clinton when he was in the White House on a balanced budget amendment. Are we going to see again a return to, you know,
very difficult to get to
cooperation?
Well, here's the problem. The one thing I need to tell you about all this debt we're ringing up and the fact that we run deficits, Colleen, is it has a major impact on economic growth over time. Because when the government consumes more and more of what we have, and we can't take our money and invest in businesses to build stronger businesses, it means the economy is hurt, and that's the problem. In terms of cooperation, look, the greatest thing to do when you go down there as a freshman is you get with somebody in the other party and you say, what can we agree on? Something big. Let's go climb the Mount Everest together. And that was always the way I thought, even when I was here in the legislature, when I went to Congress, and even as governor. And, you know, I've had a very famous sort of relationship with John Hickenlooper, the Democrat governor of Colorado. We worked together to prevent health care from being taken from 20 million people. But yes, it's good to be able to find things that you agree with somebody might be of a different philosophy and achieve something. It's gratifying.
You know, as you sit here today, there's also been a kind of, at times, a contentious relationship with you and the Republicans. Your party led the legislature. You did some things that your party did not agree with. There were people in your party, in the Republican Party, who were saying that you betrayed the party, that you're a rhino. And there's speculation that you might have more support right now from moderate Democrats in this state. Do you agree with that?
Well, Colleen, first of all, the Republican Party is my vehicle, not my master. I don't have allegiance, like I have to pledge allegiance to a political party. My job is to worry about the people of the state. One of the decisions I made was to expand Medicaid so the mentally ill, the drug addicted, the working poor could get health care. Some in my party did not like that. Well, tough. I mean, that was my job. That's what I needed to do. And now I have an outpouring of people who have been in the trenches in the area of mental health. And you saw a little note that was sent to me today. In the area of drug addiction, for single moms that have kids that couldn't get health care and go back to work. I don't care if you run around in any of these political jobs with your finger in the air and a compass and worrying about partisanship, you're a loser. So, look, I've been here for about a solid 6.5, 7 years. We've transformed this state. This state has seen more change in the last 8 years than it probably saw in the last 40 years, and people will tell you that. And that change came about because I had cooperation from some of the great leaders in the legislature. Tom Niehaus, Bill Batchelder, Keith Faber worked with me. There were a lot of things that got done. And it's normal when you get all that change that an army gets tired and they say, let's wait. And then, you know, there's no surprise in what's happening. And I like to work with everybody, but the Republicans working with me achieved many great things, and there were a number of Democrats that went along. In the area of drugs, you know, in the area of human trafficking, there was a lot of bipartisanship there. Not always bipartisanship, but enough to have seen us through.
Even as you're leaving office, there are controversies, of course, that emerge. Police and firefighters around this state right now are in what they call, the retirees are in what they're calling a crisis. They have lost their health care because of the pension fund believes it just can no longer sustain that system. They're getting a stipend, and they're concerned that they were made promises over the 30 years or so that they served that can't be fulfilled. You know, the pension systems around the country are collapsing.
We reformed
Any hope
some
for
of
them?
Well, look, police and fire, God bless them. So we need to figure out how that gets fixed. You can't tell police and fire, who spend so much time, that, well, you know, you're out of luck. And I just saw the story coming across the scroll as I sat in this room. So I think tomorrow's an important day, and we'll dig into it to see if we can be of any assistance. But part of it is the pension funds need to be made strong, and they need to be made solvent. And sometimes tough decisions get made. I've seen it's happening with OPERS, which, you know, I'm going to be able to qualify for myself and for my family. What it's going to cost, I won't, but my family will. But is it expensive? Healthcare costs a lot of money. But it's sound, and we need to make sure these systems are sound. People are counting on it.
Before we go to break, I also want to ask you, a lot of people on Facebook were telling me what they want to know about. And as you might expect, they want to know what you're going to do with the heartbeat bill. And are you going to be vetoing or passing things? You already today vetoed the Stand Your Ground, the latest version of the Stand Your Ground bill. What else are you going to be putting a red pen through?
We're going to wait. The news today is that I did veto this gun bill, and I'll tell you why. Because I think we needed to have some responsible gun control that is supported by people who support the Second Amendment, which I do. And the number one thing, Colleen, is the red flag law. If we know there's somebody unstable in a workplace or in our family that can pose a threat to somebody else, and we can go to a court, the gun should be taken out of their hands. That's not anti-Second Amendment. That's common sense. And I do want to praise the Trump administration for banning these bump stocks that turn these semis into fully automatic weapons, which we saw in Las Vegas. So on that front, I was glad to do that. And today, I also issued an executive order making sure that we don't have discrimination against anyone in the state, including those who are transgender.
All right, we will be back. Thank you for that. And we're going to ask him next, not only his final thoughts about leaving office, but also we want to know what the future might hold for John Kasich. And does it involve running for office again? We'll be back.
Yeah, exactly.
Governor Kasich is here with us now, and we want to ask the governor, because this is the $90 million question. Are you going to challenge Donald Trump for the presidency of the United States?
You know, Colleen, all of my options are on the table, and that would include, you know, what the financial challenges are, what the, you know, what the prospect of winning is, and so we go through this all the time. And what we do know today is that what we know today, we don't know tomorrow. So we are kind of watching the landscape, and we'll just have to see. My interest is in unifying this country. My interest is having a positive impact, not just in the country, but reaching out to our allies and making sure that we continue to be a very strong light in the world.
Would you consider being an independent, that third-party candidate who
All
might
options are on the
finally
table.
have a shot?
All options are on the table. I mean, we look at everything. I have a great team of people. They care about me. They were involved. You know, we did great in the last presidential. I mean, I was the last person standing. And it was very difficult, but it was rewarding, and the people that were there are still together, and we'll see.
When you look at what's going on in Washington now, do you feel bitterness? Do you feel envy? How would you describe the way you feel about the current state of the government?
Well, I mean, it's pretty pathetic, but what I think about, and I try to tell people, is forget about all that Washington stuff. Worry about your community. Worry about what you're doing at the food bank. Worry about what you're doing for somebody who just lost a spouse. Worry about what you're doing to build a better world where you live. That's what I think, because as I mentioned today, and you did a great job today at lunch where we talked about so many issues, power comes from the bottom up. And when people say they've had enough of something, whether it's civil rights, they demanded it. Whether it was women's suffrage, they demanded it. The end of the Vietnam War, the public demanded it. What we do, what we think, what we do really matters in this world. And Colleen, I'm going to say one other thing to our listeners here. It's the holiday season. It's Christmas. I happen to believe that the Lord made everybody special, everybody watching, that everybody who's watching is unique. No one ever liked them before. No one will ever be like them again. And they have a personal mission to make this a better world. And I believe that to the depths of my soul.
We have about 30 seconds left. What is your outgoing message to the voters of Ohio as you get ready to leave as their governor?
Help somebody else. Listen, slow down, give somebody a hug, because there are too many people who feel lonely. They feel nobody cares. So learn to mourn with people, learn to celebrate with people, because that's what makes us great, Colleen. Where you and I came from and where we are now, we know that the community is the heartbeat. We know our neighbors, we know our friends. You know, it's just live a life a little bit bigger than yourself.
Governor, thank you for being with us. And thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tonight at 11.